In spring 2018, 33,000 people lost their jobs when Toys R Us shut down. Many received no severance. They wrote to the firms that had owned the company, asking to be paid out of the fees those firms had collected. They had received no reply. In 2005, Toys R Us was bought by 2 private equity firms and a property company. The buyers put in $1 of their own for every 4 they borrowed, then made Toys R Us responsible for paying back the loan. The interest alone cost about $400 million a year before a single toy was sold. The new owners also charged the company fees for their own advice. In September 2017, the company filed for bankruptcy. By the following spring, it was gone. Now look at who paid and who was paid. The money the buyers put in was not their own. It came from their investors, pension funds, university endowments, the retirement savings of people who never heard of the deal. When the company shut down, those investors got nothing back. Over the same years, the firms collected around $464 million in fees and interest. 2 separate pots. One was emptied, the other was filled. The investors' money was destroyed. The fees were paid on time, before anyone knew how it would end. And regardless of how it ended, that difference, not the bankruptcy, is what matters. The obvious conclusion is that this is what private equity does. The evidence says otherwise. Across roughly 9,800 buyouts, private equity has beaten the stock market after fees and raised productivity. Borrowed money does not destroy value. Often, it does the opposite. So, what decides which version you get? The price of money on the day the deal is signed. Deals struck when credit is cheap perform worse. When money is expensive, returns have to come from running the business better. There is no other source. When money is cheap, a small gain on borrowed money becomes a large gain on your own. The business no longer has to improve. It only has to be worth borrowing against. Expensive money selects for operators. Cheap money selects for extractors. Toys R Us was a 2005 deal, struck at the top of the credit boom. A critic will say, the debt only sped up a decline already underway. That is partly true. But when Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy, it still sold roughly 1 toy in 6 bought in America. The business was still making money, about $150 million a year, before the interest came out. The interest was $400 million. Companies do not usually shut down while the business is profitable. The debt removed the margin for survival. Toys are not the point. This was one deal. The research counts roughly 9,800 others. Wherever a business can be bought with borrowed money, the same 3 positions exist. Someone lends, someone charges a fee for arranging it, and someone at the far end holds what is left if it fails. In this story, the firms charged the fee. The pension funds and 33,000 employees stood at the far end. At each layer, a fee is taken. At each layer, the risk moves one step further away from the person collecting the fee. None of this works without cheap, borrowed money. So the question is, why borrowed money is cheap? A central bank fighting falling prices makes credit cheap. That is half the answer. The other half is an expectation, and traders named it themselves. They have called it the Fed put since 1987. If markets fall far enough, the central bank arrives. In March 2020, the central bank arrived in the credit markets directly. The Federal Reserve announced it would buy corporate bonds, including some rated as junk. It authorized $750 billion. Markets steadied before the money arrived. In the end, the Fed spent about $14 billion. The promise did the work. Expectation is what makes the debt cheap. The bet is not that a given company will perform. It is that if it does not, someone will be rescued. And if someone else absorbs the losses, more debt is not more risk. Which is why stacking $4 of debt against one of your own is not recklessness. It is arithmetic. Which is also why the instinct to regulate the firms misses the target. Firms respond to the terms they are offered, and those terms are set somewhere above any firm. You cannot regulate away an incentive that comes from the money itself. None of this is new. In 1919, a young British economist described it. he wrote that governments can use inflation to confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. The process impoverishes many, while it enriches some. He added that debauching a currency works in a manner which not one man in a million is able to diagnose. The economist was John Maynard Keynes, writing 17 years before the book that would carry his name into every central bank. He was not describing private equity. He was describing what happens beneath it, to the money itself. Every fee in this story was charged in that money, and every loss recorded in it. 33,000 people sent their letter to the firms. It went unanswered. And it was addressed to the wrong recipient, not because the firms were blameless, but because the incentive responsible had no mailing address. So the question is not what should be done about the firms. It is what that letter would have said if money itself could not be created at will. This is the Cantillon letter. Monetary truth. Understand it first. Subscribe and visit us at cantillonletter.substack.com.